Northmen,
Berserkers,
geeks,
lend us your spears.
Good morning, evening, or welcome to the Brothers Gwynne. Today, myself, Ed, and my brother Will are going to be doing a spoiler-free review of the Northman for you all. Now, as you can tell, that me and Will are very keen reenactors. We are part of the Vikings UK group here in the UK. We like to reenact. We love all things Viking. We love literature and films. And we were eagerly anticipating the release of Robert Eggers' The Northman.
So first, before we get into anything else, this is going to be spoiler-free. I think you already mentioned that. But I'll say it again. First, we can give a little bit of a premise about what is The Northman about. So if you have ever watched The Lion King or read/watched Hamlet, then it's basically that story because they were both inspired by
Saxo Grammaticus's The Story of Amleth, which is written around the 12th century, and that is what inspired Shakespeare's Hamlet. If you look at Hamlet, Amleth, kind of the same thing, isn't it? Same name.
And The Northman has gone back to the roots, and the main character is actually called
Prince Amleth.
So there we go.
Now, this is a revenge tale that is blood-soaked, and it's really exciting. So, without further ado, let's get into the review.
So I think first we'll talk about what we really enjoyed about it. So me and Ed, we have quite different opinions. We both enjoyed it, but to different levels, and we enjoy different things. So hopefully this will be quite interesting to hear about. So first, let's talk about something that's done brilliantly, the acting.
Yeah, the performances in this are superb. Now, the cast is amazing. I think Robert Eggers always has a great cast, and this is, without a question of a doubt, his most star-studded cast. And the performances are amazing. You know, Nicole Kidman really steals the show, in my opinion, with a few great scenes. She's definitely well played as Hamlet's mother, but mixed in with a little bit of Lady Macbeth, I reckon. It's quite a dark film. But, you know, overall, it's a very dark film, and the performances are excellent. Willem Dafoe in it is great. Ethan Hawke, fantastic. Alexander Skarsgård is a beast. I think that's what the most used phrase, isn't it, when people discuss who he is as a character in this.
Yeah, I think that the acting, The Northman is quite an acquired taste. Some people aren't going to like it, but I think that even they will be able to recognise that this is fantastic acting. I think that's something that's going to be universally agreed on. I think this may even be nominated for some Oscars, maybe, as that the acting. I think Nicole Kidman could be for supporting actress, and Anya Taylor-Joy, that is her name, isn't it? Yeah. I think she could be nominated for main actress as well. I think it's fantastic across the board. Claes Bang, is that his name?
Yep, Claes Bang.
He's fantastic as Fjolnir, so he's Amleth's uncle. And then Ethan Hawke, I always just think of him in Dead Poets Society, so I immediately like him. Todd Anderson, but also in Training Day, great actor. And I thought, basically the acting is just fantastic. But now let's go on to the next section. What do you want to talk about next, Ed?
Well, obviously we are Viking reenactors, so let's talk a little bit about the content. You know, is this really an accurate portrayal of everyday Dark Ages, early medieval period life? I think absolutely yes. I think I saw a review, an interview with Robert Eggers saying that Neil Price's Children of Ash and Elm was a big feature in this, and Neil Price himself was helping out with kind of the research of the film, and also lots of other Viking Age historians. So that really comes into play. I think the pragmatic sense of nature of I'll say with Vikings is really on display here. The mythology is so beautifully thought out, and it feels like I'm watching a very original version of Hamlet, because Norse myths have something so unique about them, where the mythology is unlike Greek mythology in the fact that it's got quite a wry sense of humour. It's all at times a bit deranged and a bit daft. But I think here, I love how Robert Eggers blends between the historical reality, which he doesn't shy away from any aspect of it. No punches are pulled here. Whether it's a raid on a Slavic village, the way that berserkers are portrayed, the combat, also this way that slaves work and are brought into the world. He hasn't shied away from any of that. I think it's fantastic. But I love the way he blends reality and mythology, and he makes you feel like the Vikings in this, the everyday livers in this universe that he is filming in, actually believe wholeheartedly in their religion, in the gods around them, in all of, omens, ravens, all this kind of stuff. It's all believed in 100%. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I think that there's really deep dive into the culture. We've seen it in some films before, but never to this extent. And yeah, you really see that their beliefs link into what they see. So a lot of omens, like there's a scene, won't give any spoilers, but sees a crow or raven, and I think it's one of Odin's ravens. Obviously, there's that link to Odin, and so obviously thinking this is a sign, omen from the gods. It's a message to me, and it's really just immersing you in that world. I think that definitely seems to be one of the main priorities from Robert Eggers, that he wants that immersion, because whether you're emotionally attached to this or not, you will definitely feel tense throughout, and part of that is because you're really just brought into this brutal world. And I think that links nicely on into talking about a bit more of the content. There's quite a few rituals, not necessarily, there's some that are like sacrifice based, but a lot is just furthering the culture. I can't really go into saying what it is, but there's a lot of like visions people have, and it's linked to that culture, and I think that is really, really well done.
They're actually my favourite scenes, where Robert Eggers is taking kind of a ritualistic segment of, he might have read it in the sagas or in history, and thus and they're just executed perfectly. They're so intense, and I think it looks to me, from what I've read and from what I understand of Viking culture, then it looks to me like it's almost note perfect. It looks like it's all backed up by sources as well, and it is incredibly intense. If you are looking for immersion into Norse lifestyle, then this is the film, isn't it?
Yeah, and also just whilst we're talking about realism, I want to say, so it does feel really realistic, and there's that supernatural element which isn't really supernatural as visions until a certain point, where I'm going to say my first slight critique, for me anyway, it's my opinion, that sorry Ed, Ed feels there is no fault with this film, but some of the stuff isn't realistic. Like, it physically couldn't happen, where it does actually become the supernatural bit, and I'd rather a film decide 100% this is going to be supernatural or it's not, instead of blurring that line and then having bits that aren't realistic and picking and choosing, and that did detract me slightly from the fact that they're trying to make this so historically powerful and authentic, so that did pull me out slightly, but it wasn't a huge thing. It's more of a slight critique, and
I like that we have differing opinions on that, because to me the extra fantasy elements make me feel like I could be reading Dad's book. So it's kind of, it's like this, me thinking this is the closest I will see to having Dad's, Hunger of the Gods, Shadow of the Gods, the Bloodsworn Saga on the screen, without, it actually being there. Obviously, there aren't giant wolves and dragons and such, but the mythology and the fantasy elements feel very real. That it feels as if I'm watching, at times, a fantasy film, which is exciting for me.
Yeah, that's something I meant to mention. It feels very fantastical in the sense that a lot of these visions, I won't say what scene it's in, but the main character, the protagonist, he sees a scene on play where it's fighting something that is not living, and then it goes back to the reality and he just takes something off a body. And I love that is fantastical, but then it returns you to the real world. But what I mean is that a few times that didn't happen, but I do love that there's those fantasy elements there.
And I think on to the last thing we'll talk about today is the cinematic aspect of it,
and the score.
The score as well. So that all blends together nicely. For me, I think I'll talk about the choreography of the action. I think the action sequences are filmed in a way that The Revenant is filmed in kind of one long swooping take, which is there's so much, it's very busy in the background and very brutal at the forefront. For me, the choreography was a little bit slow. It looks as if the actors
for the action.
The actors knew what they were doing, but they've exaggerated the movements. Like if you're going to swing the sword at someone, they're really taking it back like that to try and strike someone. To me, that kind of pulled me out the realisms at times. I think there's a final duel at the end, which you've probably seen stills from it. It's in a volcano, and Revenge of the Sith has nothing on this duel. But together with the choreography here and the music, it's all it's insane. It's so good. The choreography there was fantastic. I saw lots of lovely shield movements. If you've watched Dimmakata, Roland Wojciechka on YouTube, then you see that Viking combat with sword and shield is very different to what people might have seen in, let's say, Kirk Douglas's The Vikings film.
Yeah, adding on that, the choreography, I think that the last scene is an incredible piece of choreography. It looks so realistic, and I'm not 100% sure about the authenticity of how they're striking each other, but it looks like they're trying to kill each other, which was my problem. I was a bit disappointed with the rest of the action. It as well as drawing back, it felt like the attacker wasn't actually aiming for people, and it just looked. I was quite disappointed in that. It did look quite fake.
I understand why it looks like that, because they're doing it in one shot. So
yeah, but other films have done that before.
Yeah, I don't think there was any CGI or much CGI at all really with the combat. As if you're looking at the Revenant, you can tell there are parts that are CGI, which is why it feels a bit more brutal in your face. But
I'm just going to then think of Aragorn and Lurtz though. Broken nose.
Yeah.
He had a broken nose, didn't he? Or nosebleed or something. Viggo Mortensen during that fight. I think he was actually headbutted by accident. Come on, that looks
the
real.
geezer was wearing big prosthetics.
Yeah. But that last year was fantastic. And talking more about the soundtrack, the score, it's absolutely incredible. Yeah. I'm stuttering because it's just so good. It's amazing. As soon as it's available, I'm downloading that. I'm listening to that whenever I'm doing anything. Let's just hope people don't hear what I'm listening to. They may be a bit freaked out. But
final thoughts then. As a Viking reenactor, I think...
Can I just say one more thing before? I think that I was really immersed and very tense, but it's been compared to Gladiator and films that I'd put like Last Mohicans, The Patriot, that sort of thing in the same category. I didn't have the same emotional involvement in the sense I cry at those other films. And for this, I was rooting for our main character.
You've shed your last tear.
I was rooting for our character, but I didn't feel that level of a connection with them personally. I still felt really involved and tense, but I just didn't have that bit that would have raised it to that extra level. But
for me, it felt like the Batman, where at the end of pretty much every scene, me and Will were looking at each other like, holy smokes, because it was just like epic. But I welled up a couple of times. There were some emotional scenes for me. It wasn't quite like the level of other historical films that we've been so emotionally engaged in. But there's so many twists and turns in this that it kind of takes your mind off that, and it's still a fantastic film. One of my absolute favourites. Kind of the Revenant level for me.
Yeah, I think this is a film everyone should try because
I hope it does well at the box office.
It's very fresh, it's very original, and I think everyone should give it a go. It might not be to your taste, but I think that at the least you'll come out respecting what has been made, and there'll be a lot to talk about. I think it's something that people, when they see it, will be wanting to talk to others about for quite a while.
Undoubtedly so. So, final thoughts. As a Viking reenactor, I believe that this is kind of the closest accurate film that we will probably ever see, because Robert Eggers has a great attention to detail. He wants total immersion, and you completely get that. There are so many things that make this a unique film, which is rare to say when you're watching kind of a Hamlet reskin. Saxo Grammaticus's Prince Amleth reskin. So I think Robert Eggers has achieved an awful lot with this film, and I hope it does well at the box office, because we need more films like this with big budgets, studios kind of taking a gamble into an accurate film. There's research here. It looks like there's mounds, there's graves within it, there's great mythology, there's the Björka warrior, which is great to see.
Oh, yeah, it's the most fantastical historical film I think we'll ever get.
And to me, it's superb. Bar some of the combat, it was still a cinematic epic, which I will be watching an awful lot over the next few years.
Yep, and I think that's all we have to say. We've really enjoyed it. We will be probably watching it again over the next week or so, because often you can get very different thoughts on the second time round, because obviously there's the context, you understand all the subtext a bit better as well. And so, I think that's our review for now. So thank you for watching, everyone. Hopefully this has intrigued you. Let us know if you have watched The Northman in the comments below.
Very well. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Truth and courage from the Brothers Gwynne.
The Brothers Gwynne.